What's going on, world? It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of Nalo Kicking Knowledge. Today, we'll be examining the natal chart of Bobby Brown. So, let's get into it. If you haven't heard, or I should really say, I was inspired to do this video because of the news that Bobby Brown had lost his son, Bobby Brown Jr., to flu-like symptoms earlier this week. And if you weren't aware, but I'm sure you are, we know Bobby also lost his daughter that he had with his ex-wife, Whitney Houston. Bobby Christina also passed away. So when I got the news, I was just like, wow, like that's heavy, and this man is just here. And I always feel like that's one of the crazier things within life, to live it and to form emotional bonds and then be the last of it, or to see those you form emotional bonds with wither away or drift away in some case. I always find that part of life interesting. So nonetheless, I was seeking to understand, like what role does death play in Bobby Brown's life? Who is he? And so we're gonna just check out his natal chart. So I want to just point out a couple things that I really see that have definitely come out to pass, and obviously through celebrities and people who have really lived a life. Bobby is 51. You really get to see the natal chart play out. So we're really looking here at the natal promise, because that's what the natal chart is. It is things, potentialities of things set to occur. And I'm of the belief that those things are affected by choice. We're set to get to a destination, but in between, the choices we make or the routes we take determine ultimately how that journey will go. So we see Bobby Brown is an Aquarius sun, a Virgo moon, and a Capricorn rising. And I checked several sites and they all pretty much have confirmed this birth time. So I'm like, all right, I'll rock out with it and let's see if everything falls into place. So, we see the ruler. We want to look for the rulers of these planets. So he's an Aquarius sun. So we use the rulership of Uranus, and you can use Saturn as well. For the moon, it is Mercury. And then for the ascendant, it is Saturn. And Capricorn risings, man, it's 12 different ones, and then you got Saturn to be your chart ruler. With that, no matter how things play out in your life, reality of certain situations will be felt. So when I say that, right, it's a reality of certain situations. Well, those situations could be anything, but they're more so going to gravitate towards sectors where you have energy at, right, which that reality can be felt. And for Bobby, we see a host of planets here within the 8th house of sex, death, transformation, intensity, other people's assets, joint things inside our marriage, inner psychology. I could go for days, right? So there's a large reality that's going to be felt within that area. And I'm going to make a comment later on, but I just kind of want to assess, Bobby here. So he's a chart ruler of Saturn, so that's going to, bring reality really to you. And then the Saturn is in Aries, a physical sign, right? And then Mars here, ruler of Aries, is in Scorpio. So just through that chain of command, we can see themes of death playing out, and yeah, accidents, physicality, things like that. And then he's an Aquarius sun, and Aquarius we know represents the 11th house, our hopes, dreams, humanitarian spirits. And then also like our place within the collective. What groups do we identify with? Who are the people am I around? And basically, like, how do they affect my vibe? And then with that being ruled by Uranus, the planet of higher genius and unexpected things, whenever you have the ascendant, or in this case an interception where it's an Aquarius energy still in the ascendant, you have the energy of unpredictability or sudden happenings with the individual. Okay, and then what we're really focusing on here is looking at rulerships. Okay, so then we're talking about the sun and it being ruled by who? Uranus. And then Uranus is in the 8th house. So there's a potential of a lot of sudden happenings that involve, people we're close to. That involves death. And that death can trigger transformation. So I want to arrive here at this point that how I approach things, right, is, and it goes with the saying of life, isn't it? It's not happening like to me, or I forget the exact saying, but it's like another saying would be like, it's not about what happens to you in life, it's how you respond. So ultimately what I'm trying to say is that I try to examine the soul's evolutionary intent. What are they here to do or understand and experience? And what we can see here, if we go and jump here and look at the North Node, this North Node is here in the 2nd house and it is conjuncting Venus. And it is opposing this energy within the 8th house. So wherever the North Node is, the South Node is opposite to that. So opposite to that is the South Node in this 8th house. And to me, looking at the host of energies here, particularly Pluto and Moon, we see that there is a strong 8th house or past life lessons being brought over into this one. Okay, so in the previous life, we have a lot of rain to, and this is an intuitive part. What do you feel? What is your intuition saying? What is this chart saying? Did this person possibly pass on, early, or what about death? Were they resistant to death? Did they have fears around death? These are all things that can be interpreted through examining different parts of the chart. Okay, so you and that's a way to kind of connect at a deeper level, because these have manifested into things, but what do those things mean at a deeper level, for the soul? And for 8th house, people, the basic premise is death gives birth to new life. So always, there's a physical form, but there's death on many different levels. So moving on, like I said, there can be interpreted something with the South Node and North Node, but in this life, the financial independence or financial expansion is going to be an area of concern for the individual. And based on the configuration here of not just that North Node being connected to Venus, which represents others, but it opposing the 8th house with a host of energy in the 8th house, shows that one's ability to establish financial independence, their value system, sense and identification will be always affected by others. Others are meant to have a role within that. And this is a very, when the nodes eclipse a planet, especially to this close of a degree, I find it to manifest in very fascinating ways. And so one thing in particular with Venus being pleasure is that automatically these people can have addictive personalities because this North Node, also known as Rahu, has a large appetite. It wants to. It's like a kid in a candy store, and when it gets like, so whatever planet it's with, it wants to use that energy, experience what that energy is about. So with Venus, a large portion of that has to deal with um, pleasure, and then with the rawness and fiery nature of Aries, we see this as this can also be sex, so a high sex drive. Now, another interesting thing with this being Bobby Brown, how he rose to prominence, obviously being a part of a group. So the next part of this is this opposition of Jupiter and Venus. Abundance and blessings can be found when you harmonize and use that opposition. And then with it being in the 8th house, like I said, the ability to generate wealth comes along with others. But interesting enough, as you know, Bobby came to prominence with New Edition and then ventured out into his solo career. Pluto was moving through his 10th house, and then the 10th house and the midheaven will always be part of I like to say like your legacy or just your outward. You know how we don't really know people like celebrities, we know them but we don't. It's an energy. You know, there's a certain energy attached to that person's public persona. So in the sense of, or right, in the sense of Scorpio, it would be with Bobby Brown. It was his sex appeal, seductiveness, the edginess. At that moment, he's channeling all this Plutonian energy and using that to further expand career-wise and all of that. So that theme was playing out. And it's also interesting to note, while I was just doing a little research and stuff, when Bobby married Whitney, he had, it was not yet his Jupiter return, but Jupiter was transit in his 8th house as it was in Virgo, and conjunct this between or around this Moon Pluto energy in the 8th, and then Pluto was directly conjunct this Mars in the 10th. Now, another thing we could look at is in the sense of public persona, right? So obviously Bobby's a first house sun, Mercury, all these things are huge parts of his personality and things you can see through direct interaction with him and things of that nature. But going back to the 10th house and the energy that we kind of exude out in the world, whether it be through career and what you're known for, right? When we look at this, 8th house is, Scorpio is the original 8th house. He has all this 8th house energy. So in a certain sense, not to mention the ruler Uranus of his sun is also connected in this, but whether Bobby Brown was famous or not, this indicates he was slated to, when you think about Bobby, you think about him and whoever his partner may have been. Like I said, there is your certain people that their energy manifests in this world and is meant to manifest from the standpoint of my success involves others. My story is not just of my own volition, it is with others. So we see that in the sense of this midheaven in Scorpio, the fact that there's energy in the 8th, and then also, like I said, this North Node and South Node stuff. But other people very much so connected to, Bobby's overall evolution. So going back to the idea of like, maybe internally within his journey, he's too attached to others. And in order for him to break that attachment, others have to be taken away from him. Now, looking at the nature of this, like with the 8th house, different signs on the 8th could show it coming in different ways. The idea of death. So death could be psychological, it could be physical. But how do we need to experience it? How does the energy needs to register? So this part of like looking at energies, you want to get a feel for like what is this person's kind of dominant energy. And what we can see here is that one, it's Mercury. It's Mercury, because especially that being your intelligence, right? But it's also Mars. It's also Martian. And we see that through aspects. Sun squaring the Mars. The ascendant ruler being in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. So you want to feel things out. I feel like because Bobby himself is a Martian type of person, it manifests within that type of way. Okay? Just in the next thing, in looking at a deeper thing of how it can manifest, one thing we see that he's lost family. Moon is conjunct Pluto, and that's why I would say it's like a double-edged sword for a lot of placements, because at the same time, with the loss, right, that Bobby endured, I know from looking at just the alignment of it that the relationship between him and Whitney, as we all could feel it, but but I would say like it was everything he at least probably wanted in a partnership. They seem like very ride or die for one another, and that's part of Moon conjunct Pluto. That now a Moon conjunct Pluto person desires that. How that gets fulfilled or manifests will be based on the house it gets placed in. This gets placed into the 8th house, so which is another significator of like a marriage, okay, and a marriage that's going to have some type of transformative effect on the person. So it's like levels. Like I said, what I see here with Bobby is someone who's learning personal things through those that are around him. And I get the feeling that it's something about him having to let go. And at the end of the day, a lot of these things, they humble you. I don't wish it on anybody naturally. But when we just sit and reflect, we kind of see here that, life is about lessons and things of that nature. Now, I was just really using this as a base. There's a lot more to consider here, okay, especially when you look at his progressed energy, which also was another thing I left out because he's also a progressed Aries at this point in his life, sun-wise. Yeah, so this is just like a quick thing of me connecting with the chart, showcasing, a little bit. So feel free to chime in. Let me know what you guys, think. 8th housers, for sure, chime in. Let us know what your relationship with death, how it's transformed you, intimacy, all of that. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, feel free to do so now. Till next time, peace.